everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David,
And I'm Carl.
and this is where we talk all things Star Wars. And for this particular episode, we're talking about the Acolyte, Episode 6, Breakdown and Easter Eggs. So we are almost to the finish line. We have two more episodes left. Of course, with every Acolyte episode, there is much to talk about, much discourse online for whatever reason. I tell people all the time, if you're looking for a more realistic, positive reaction to these episodes, come to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast, listen to us, because I think we're more honest and we're a little bit more positive in regards to the show. And I think for the most part, we all like the show. So yeah, it's just strange, I think, to us to see all the negative opinions on this show. But before we get started here, we definitely want to thank all the awesome supporters online, all the top tier supporters on Patreon, starting with Hayden Hauser, Darth Ace One, Leah McCallion, Chris Simpson, Kevin Leininger, Devin McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Zach Netzel, Maya Morris, Maka Talatala, Adam Haber, and Brad Mackey. Thank you so much for all your awesome love and support for the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. We're doing all kinds of stuff, all kinds of new conventions that we're going to. We're trying to do all new swag to mail out to our top tier Patreon supporters. So look out for all that. And Liam, one of our top tier Patreon subscribers. Hey guys, he is from across the pond. He says he's loving the show. I think I am too. I mean, with every new arc and development with all these characters, especially Manny Jacinto's character, Chimere, the Stranger / the Master / a new Sith, maybe. I don't know. But we'll talk about it here. We'll bring up the episode and watch it every 10 seconds by 10 seconds, which is what Disney Plus allows us to do. So, Carl, overall, what did you think about the episode?
I I I like the exposition. I kind of, for one, wish it was longer. Secondly, because it's so short, some of the dialogue is a little, I don't know, short and awkward instead of being like long, like conversational. But yeah, that comes back down to the show length. They just need to need to figure it out. Having these in like these tiny little chunks, especially for narrative storytelling, doesn't work for me. But episode on the whole, I like it.
So, if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you can see here this is the previous episode, which is that really grand picture that they showed us at Celebration London, all the way back in the year 2023 there. And this got me so hyped in the audience watching this celebration only trailer, which we all kind of wanted them to release it to the public so everyone could get hyped along with us. And of course, the leaks came out, and it wasn't us, but I'm always afraid to have my phone out at these things because I do not want to be kicked out whatsoever. And of course, it'll look bad on the podcast, but somehow it leaked, and it was online for a bit. But yeah, just to see all these Jedi all together with their lightsabers ignited, it's something of my childhood dreams here. But yeah, I like that they actually went back and showed you what happened previously. And here, of course, yeah, you kind of going over last episode, you see Yord's neck being broken, which is that surprising to you that they actually showed that?
Well, not really, because that is a very PG-13 of killing somebody on camera because it doesn't have any blood, and since you
Right,
know
right.
Disney doesn't really push it past PG-13. Now, what did kind of surprise me about it is that they used like the classic Schwarzenegger style net, right? Like 80s action movie style.
Yeah,
But because that's why I guess in a way for Star Wars, you kind of expect more lightsaber or something technological, but why not do it that way? There's no reason, even though it's actually pretty hard to do. But we already saw how strong
yeah.
Chimera is, so yeah, well, works for me on the whole.
And also, guys, if you're watching the podcast live, if you're in chat, type in what your opinions are. If we miss something, let us know and we'll address it because we can only show so much. Our last episode, Carl and I did for the breakdown, we got pulled off of YouTube, so I don't want to do that again. So here, of course, you see the conversation between May and Osha, how May is trying to convince Osha that she got brainwashed, which I don't know, that she might be right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, the episode starts off the same way I believe the very first episode started off, with one of the twins waking up with that particular camera angle going up. So it's almost like the beginning of something. Plus, I think something else that I don't think a lot of people picked up on, which might not be accurate, but to me it sounds like when you watch that very first teaser, and I think we saw it at Celebration together, for The Last Jedi, when Rey puts her hand on the rock and the water goes like straight up, it's
Mm-hmm.
that same type of music, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. The thing that they've been doing with this shot that throughout the show, because it's not just the second time they do this. Because yes, the opening shot had this, but they Mayway or Osho rather waking up has always been marked with that. So I guess it's also a way for them to tell us, hey, this is Osha, not May. You know, for people that haven't been paying as much attention, so you don't get confused as to who you're looking at.
Yep, the tattoo right there. And then you see the. So did we settle on if she really did get force healed by Chimere?
I don't know if he force healed her or what he actually did. To be quite honest, I mean, he may have just kind of because when you watch that scene really closely, the wound doesn't actually close. You know, like when they showed force heal in Mandalorian and in uh episode 9, that they actually healed the wound, not just reanimated the corpse or the dying person. So I don't think that was force healing so much as more of a maybe waking her up like smelling salt kind of thing, just to just to see if she's even still fully functional. But
Yeah.
and the fact that she's still bleeding there now kind of also reinforces that. Because if you
So
look,
yeah, we see some food cooking there. And the uneasy music continues to play. So she's in some sort of cave. And of course, I think we all kind of assume that she's in Chimere's dwelling. And it's littered with all kinds of different stuff. Looks like some power. Um,
you know what's weird, and I know that I'm probably the only one that thought any of that, but this particular set, the floor layout is the same as the opening scene from The Fifth Element. Like you'd have the mirror on the right side there with a door or whatever that is, and then the
yeah,
main entrance into the temple on the left. But yeah, I just kind of thought that when that came on screen, I was like, look, Fifth Element,
interesting.
and it's similar lighting too, by the way, because I think
Yeah.
that's really what does it.
So yeah, you see Osha here grab a bag that's essentially May's stuff.
Yeah, like an overnight bag that she keeps at Chimere's.
Yeah. So yeah, she puts on May's clothing. Of course, it fits. They're identical twins, played by the same actor. She goes out and she discovers where she is. So yeah, the camera pulls out of the cave here, and this looks a lot like Octu. So did you think, okay, well, we're back on Octu? Did you think,
I
no, that doesn't feel right?
I well, I mean, I obviously you recognize that as very similar looking. The rock shoreline, the
Right.
the very steep hill set up there. but I kind of from the assumed that that's not what it was because Arc 2 is not uninhabited. It'd be pretty hard for somebody to continuously come and go from this planet without the caretakers of the Jedi Temple on that planet to notice. So, I mean, is it possible that he's that he would have been terrorizing them, making them do his bidding? Sure, but yeah, it just didn't seem to really work. So I assumed this was something else, and it is.
Liam McCallan on YouTube says, I agree with Carl on the show length, but I think they spent 180 million on this show and only got around 4 hours of show.
Well, I appreciate that the cost of it for sure, but
Yeah,
it's just I really in a way wish that they had cut this into a 2 episode TV special and have 2 2-hour movies, back to back. Spend about 90 to 100 a piece, and let the dialogue and the narrative flow a little bit more. But that's not what they did. So gotta live with it.
yeah. Musu Yoda on YouTube says, agreed. Lucasfilm has to up their game and give us hour-plus long episodes. Loved episode 6, though. I loved it too. That was fantastic.
Yeah. One question I have is why? How is it that they can spend as much money as they spend and end up with these short episodes when other shows are spending similar money and are able to deliver more?
Right.
That's that. I don't know how that works. But.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting kind of TV philosophical question here. It's like you look at some shows are hour a length long plus. I mean, you would expect there's some type of mandate or quota that they're trying to hit for these TV shows. I think it's in Disney's best interest for a Disney Plus show to maybe do the 30-minute by 30-minute episode kind of roadmap there in form, just to get people to subscribe to Disney Plus. I mean, I think that's really the end goal. So it kind of hinders what I think we want. But I mean, you look at other streaming platforms; they do hour-long episodes. So
And they do more episodes.
yeah, that's the other thing too.
Like House of the Dragon is going to be what 13 episodes, something like that.
Yeah, that show's just phenomenal.
But yeah, so we're here to talk about.
Yeah, we always go off on that tangent because I think that's something that will really improve. I think we all agree Star Wars would be better off for it. But we get a labeling, a quasi-labeling for this planet. It says unknown planet, which is kind of strange, and I don't think we've ever seen that before.
Well,
it has to be known to someone.
Well, I thought this was actually kind of cool. Because the way I interpret this is that they always name the planet from the view of the character that's in the scene. So in her case, she doesn't know where she is, so then the name that pops up is unknown planet. Where before the characters always knew where they were, so it kind of made visual sense to me. So
yeah, it totally makes sense to me. But I just thought after thinking about it for a while, it's like we're not the character in the show, and it's not like we're Jedi and have the Jedi viewpoint. So why not just tell us the name of the planet? What's the mystery? Maybe it has something to do with the future episodes or season 2 or something else. But yeah, definitely kind of cool and unique that they did that. There's an article that was written that the explanation, which everyone I think is assuming it's kind of a placeholder and just kind of BS that they're saying that they did this due to the fact that this is the Jedi's point of view, kind of like what you said, Carl. So they don't know what this planet is. So of course, everyone just kind of ran with, I think, watching this episode before doing any research that it was Octu. Then you can see in the background there, you can see Kymir's ship that he flew into Kofar with May a couple episodes ago. Musu Piota on YouTube says, where do you think Soul jump to based on some of the shots from teaser trailers. I'm thinking he goes to unknown planet. Well,
That's if he knows where that is. Then there will be a whole lot of explaining to how he knows where they went to.
yeah.
Of course, there is the theory that he's the main bad guy in the long term, and he just therefore goes back to his own home base. I'm not sure that I'm actually on board with that.
Right. Liam McCallion on YouTube says, I think a 45 to 60 minutes on a weekly show is a minimum, but if they're doing a dump of the episodes, a 30-minute format might work.
Right, but then you might as well do 1 hour episodes. If you're going to dump them in 2s or 3s, just cut them together in that case.
Yeah, Moose Yoda kind of agrees with you, Carl, on YouTube. Unknown with an asterisk. No idea how he know to go there, but I think we're about to get some details about Soul's past in the next episode. Yeah, definitely there's something awry with Soul, and we'll see that here in a bit with his reactions. And here are some creatures that look a lot like the Thalos sirens from The Last Jedi, but apparently they're not. It's been confirmed that they have a different name. And I was trying to look up the name earlier and I didn't see it, but I've heard it a few times. But
I've heard that from a lot of people, and I don't actually see it. Like I don't. I mean, to be quite honest, other than that, they get the coloration. Like for one, the size is completely different.
well, yeah, I mean, they could possibly grow to be really huge creatures, but it looks like this is kind of like almost like a family here.
Well, yeah, and also they have the bodily make of a wingless bird, where the sirens actually have four
Big
appendages.
flippers.
Yeah, so yeah, this just didn't. I never made that connection, but it's seemingly in the minority because a lot of people were talking about that.
Yeah. So yeah, we see Osha looking off into the distance, and of course, Kymir's ship is across the tide there on another separate, smaller island. And then we just see Kymir pop up in the distance, kind of walking really kind of calmly with the bag. And we jump back to Kofler. And we see Soul take off with only who he thinks is Osha, along with Basil, which I'm not quite sure he knows Basil's on the ship, right?
I mean, that's never really addressed, but it's either he just naturally assumes that Basil would have returned back to the ship with all that happened. Yeah. Basil's clearly not your combat troop, so.
Right.
So but yeah, he didn't specifically like check to see if Basil made it or not, which is a little weird. But then again, Yord was the one that was able to talk to him, right. So maybe he just doesn't know that that guy actually hangs out on the ship.
So here we have a scene where Saul's trying to contact Coruscant, trying to contact the Jedi Order, and it looks like we get the first appearance of Mog on the screen. And to me, do you think that communications were like purposefully tampered with, or do you think that this was just kind of like a serendipitous type of thing that happens for Soul, where he doesn't have to communicate everything that actually transpired? And of course, everyone's pointed out that he doesn't tell them how his party died here, and thus preventing the Jedi from knowing the Sith are back.
Well, I actually think that there's a little bit more logic in it than that. I'm guessing that he's realizing that he keeps going in and out of the signal, and so he chops up his message based on what he's seeing on the instrumentation. Because to me, it looked like he was making a genuine effort to actually communicate, but then he stops whenever he loses signal and starts over. But throughout the episode, he seems to be changing his mind about what he's going to tell him, up to the point where at the end he flips the transponder off, like, you don't need to know what I'm doing at all. But
right. It still indicates emergency code 0. which is
That's a
probably one of the more extreme emergency codes.
yeah, that's a Clone Wars thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Uh, yeah, Lee Jung Jae does a terrific job kind of being this ambiguous Jedi Master here. And he says, my whole team is dead. And that's what Coruscant gets from the transmission that's breaking up there. And we see May posing as Osha here walk through I guess the galley of the ship here. And we
But
see
but
Basil.
by the way, if you watch the status screens around the thing, it indicates that there's something wrong with the ship. So I'm guessing that's the reason why
Huh.
the communications are not good, which is also why she ultimately ends up rebooting the ship essentially. So that's
Interesting.
like, if you look at all the screens in the background, they all have this red warning sign on them.
Hmm.
There's some of them that are clearer than others, but yeah. So something's not right. I don't know why they don't tell us on screen what's going on because it
Yeah.
seems like something was omitted here, but I don't know.
So this scene right here looks like May is looking to take out Soul from behind with one of her blades. And of course, Soul senses her. Okay, so that's the other big like piece that people are kind of going back and forth about. Does he know that this is not Osha, that this is actually May? Is he pretending? Is he waiting for like his time to seize the moment and kind of take her out? Well, what's going on here?
I Well, I would assume that what's going on is more like he knows that there's something wrong with OSHA, not necessarily that it's May, but like is
Okay, I get you.
so he's got his guard up just in case, but I don't think he actually knows until later in the episode.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say, well, he's a Jedi Master. He should be able to sense it. But I mean, you think about it, he's been through a huge trauma. His whole team just died in front of his Padawan, just died in front of him. And
And
now
we
he's
don't, and May is a Force user. We don't
right.
know what her skill set actually is, to be quite honest, because they really haven't shown us. So she could be actively fighting that. Who knows?
And if you're watching this on video there, it looks like almost like two lightsabers are hanging down.
Well, it just also it looks like the little yoke that he's holding on to has two lightsaber handles at the end of it. So apparently that's the Jedi's way of doing things. They put little lightsaber handles everywhere.
Yeah. So yeah, Soul tells May slash Osha to take the wheel. And she's like, okay, well that wasn't my time to strike. I gotta actually drive. I gotta pilot this starship here. So she does exactly that. And I really like the scene from Lee Jung Jae as Master Soul. And as you pointed out, there's the red markings there that something's wrong. And there's about 47 seconds of him not speaking, just him kind of reacting to everything, all the trauma that it just took place.
Yeah, and also initially it looks like when they switch to that scene, it looks like he's actually manipulating something and then can't figure it out and gets frustrated, and then you have this scene. So
Yeah, he's maybe thinking about the past, being remorseful, pops it all back on again. And we still have Basil. He made it on the ship and he's sniffing around. He's looking for something and he has, I think, Pip in his hand there. And he's essentially looking how to reactivate him. And there's a visual aid to dock Pip to the ship there and get him charged back up and give him power again. I mean, Pip is so much like a cell phone that we have here, and I think Leslie Headland has described Pip as basically a combination between like an iPhone and a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
So
By the way, the one thing I was wondering if Pip is the way that they're going to find out where OSHA is, because the only thing that they or rather that the because this bottom half is missing, so I don't know if the top half can communicate to the bottom half. So
yeah,
it's just one of those. And she would have bagged that up with the when she switched clothing with OSHA.
yeah.
So May should technically have the bottom half of Pip with her. So that might end up being a way of tracking them, but I don't know if they thought that far into it.
Yeah, and here we have Chimere walking down. We're back on that unknown planet, which he looks very, very. His clothing looks very much, I guess, dark side Jedi, Jedi with black robes on. Looks very cool on him, and he has a bag, which I guess contains his lightsaber. And I don't know what else does he have in that bag, Carl.
Maybe a bar of soap. I mean,
So okay, so he's going to take a bath.
right. So he might have toiletries in there. I don't know. Towel, probably.
Yeah, maybe a shaver. I don't know.
I mean, has to shave somehow, right?
So yeah, OSHA follows him down, and Chimere proceeds to disrobe here, as you would assume. I mean, if you're gonna take a bath, you're not gonna take a bath with clothes on, right? So
Yeah.
he's got to take his clothes off. So he
Now,
totally
now it seems to me kind of obvious that he's aware that she's there. So
right. Of course, yeah. He's a very powerful dark side user. He probably senses that she's along for the walk there to his waiting pool. So yeah, Chimere jumps in. OSHA's trying to figure out what is going on here. She's trying to get her bearings, and you can see kind of a back shot of the giant pool that he's swimming in. And OSHA does find his saber, and his saber looks pretty cool. If Hasbro makes one, I'm probably gonna buy one. Maybe do a giveaway. But yeah, Chimere is totally aware that she's in the back, and he starts. He addresses her.
But by the way, I've heard a bunch of people complaining about the thickness of that saber.
Yeah,
And I mean, first of all, it's not hers, so like people are complaining, "Oh, look, she can barely get her hand around it." Oh, yeah, it's not her saber, so we don't know how big those hands are, so it may be appropriately sized for him.
right. And you think
But
about the whole technology angle. The more time that passes with technology, it gets smaller. I like that fact.
yeah, I mean, and some people like a thick steering wheel, some people like like a thin steering wheel. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So yeah, Chimere asks, "How does it feel?" And then he says, "Feels good, doesn't it?" And then OSHA's standing there in her, I guess, instinctual Jedi lightsaber form there. And Chimere says, "I assume you didn't keep your own saber when you left the order." And so it's just the back and forth of Chimere just being very calm, as gentle and as non-violent, as very kind of zen as possible in this situation. And then he offers her a tip on her form there. You should keep your other elbow up higher for defense. And OSHA, of course, still does not trust him, points the saber directly at him and says, "Stay where you are." And then Chimere says, "If you're not going to join me, I'd like to put my clothes back on." So a lot of people online jump to the conclusion that Kymir kind of did this on purpose. Um, and there's an insinuation of like a romantic type of interest here. And I didn't really get that from this. I mean, I don't
Well,
know. That's just me, but
a little bit. I actually do see that, but I think it's more of a he's just throwing a whole bunch of things at her just to see what her reactions are to various different enticements of doing whatever.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, is it directly sexual, for example? I don't necessarily think so. But
But I will give it this though, because Leslie Headland in several interviews has said that she really loved and was really intrigued by the whole word seduce when Obi-Wan, I believe, tells Luke that Vader was seduced by the dark side.
mhm.
And she kept on mentioning that in interviews, and people thought, okay, well, there's some type of seduction aspect here that's like a romantic tilt to it. But I didn't see that. I think the guy was just kind of just doing something just to get her to follow. And he made himself super vulnerable to OSHA and to make himself as least threatening as possible. And that's the way they shot the scene, and that's how it kind of played out.
Right. Plus, people also need to take into consideration is that for that universe, there may not be anything wrong with people being naked. That may be if completely socially acceptable
Yeah.
because I mean, that's never been something that they've actually ever explored on screen. So if people like if you watch, for example, like Starship Troopers, where
Mhm.
they're in unisex showers and
Yeah.
things like that. So this may not be a big deal. That, it may be interpreted as sexual to us here in our society, but to them, that might just be okay. Well, he's naked, obviously, and not a
Right.
big deal. So we don't know.
And Kymir says, "You're wondering if it's honorable to kill me like this," which, of course, the Jedi code is you can't kill someone or attack someone who's defenseless or be on the offensive. So yeah, Kymir's basically reasoning with her in this situation where he's totally naked, totally defenseless. I guess he just has the force here, and as so many of people have pointed out,
Not exactly.
when he walks out,
Anger betrays your thoughts.
OSHA looks him up and down, which I still don't think that there's anything to that. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, this, for example, some people were like, okay, well, technically she's looking at his waist, but it's also like I'm thinking about something look like when you're in a conversation.
right,
So
exactly.
that's
Yeah, and Kymir kind of keeps up the conversation of like very, very sane, very civil, very gentle, trying to reason with her in the situation that she's currently in on this unknown planet. And yeah, we get the scene where OSHA asks if several people are dead, and she brings up Saul's name first, and then she brings up her sister, and then Kymir points out that's interesting that you mentioned Sol and not your sister, and talks about addresses the fact that there's a special relationship between master and pupil, which apparently Kymir wants the power of two and wants a pupil, as he described it, and says it's a special relationship. So he's
right.
really, really vying to get OSHA, apparently, as his acolyte.
But at the same time, it kind of could also just be the reason why she's asking it in that order is that she naturally assumes May is okay because May has been associated with him. So, she could be asking about the one person that is the most likely to be dead at this point. Yeah,
Right.
because depending on the answer, her next question might have been, "Oh, where's my sister?" Yeah, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
and Kymir puts a white long sleeve shirt on here, which is kind of interesting. He goes from dark to light. And he talks about master and pupil, gets his bag of toiletries, walks back up the path. You see Soul dock with the hyperspace engine. I guess we're all assuming. And yeah, it's May doing the driving there. And then this is a interesting interaction. We get the awkward hug between Soul and May. Soul thinks that's OSHA. And of course, from this interaction, maybe Soul is suspecting there was a
That-
flip flop between the twins, and she didn't get that proper reaction that I think he was expecting.
right.
And I think this
See,
was the first kind of real big tip off.
right. I think this was the first probe kind of thing. It's like because the dialogue had been weird from them when they were from the time they got into the ship in the first place. So this may be just him going, you know, that let's see what her reaction is, because involuntary reaction would be harder to cover up than something that his attitude also seems to change, by the way, like right after that hug. So I
Yeah.
think this is probably the first time he actually figures out that that's not for sure.
And Amanda Stenberg right here is doing a really good job acting as May, pretending to be OSHA. I mean, you could totally tell from our vantage point as the audience that yes, this is not OSHA. And then Soul kind of comes to grip with everything that's transpired and says it's time for me to face the High Council. And of course, knowing what we know in the Phantom Menace, that's probably never going to happen. And of course, we get Mog back on the holo projector. It's buzzing. So the comms got restored, but the ship just turns off, essentially. So we get back to Coruscant here, the Jedi Temple. And we get Mog reporting to Vernestra Row in an empty room here. Or actually, that's not Mog. That's one of the senators. And I believe it is. I'm trying to remember the species name. But yeah, it's they talk about transparency with the Jedi. Um, it was
Oh
yes,
yeah, that's the same as one of the pilots and
right. The one of the species that was first introduced to us in the Force Awakens, created by Neil Scanlan's team, and they're all the character named of this species are all named after, I believe, Beastie Boys albums or phrases or whatever. And I think this one also was named after a Beastie Boys something.
The Jedi are always transparent with the Senate. This is a case of an ambitious senator grasping for power.
Apologies, Senator. I must go. But thank you for your update.
And we get more politics here in Star Wars, which we've always gotten from the beginning. Mog shows up, so this Jedi, and I haven't heard anyone point this out still on any other podcast or stream or anything, but Mog is the name of John Candy species on Spaceballs, I believe. Part man, part dog.
Yeah.
So yeah, Vernestra Row has counsel here with Mog, and Mog relays back the details that everyone's dead, and then she reveals that I sent him to Kofar. So that's where they're headed to. We jump back to the unknown planet, the rocky coastline.
But by the way, did you get why Mog is so surprised that she's wanting to go on this one?
Yes, and that points back actually to the High Republic books.
Right.
Plus, I think it also has something to do with the thing that the stuff that we don't know that she knows, and maybe will be revealed to us later on. But yeah, according to the High Republic books, she would have visions and essentially contact ghosts in a way, it seemed, and that was disturbing to her. And they pointed out that she would get nauseous in hyperspace, but that wasn't the case. She just didn't like that force
Right.
experience on
So
the
yeah,
ship.
so she has some sort of weird connection to the Force when she goes through hyperspace. And so
Right.
they don't actually openly say it, but I thought it was kind of cool that they casually do kind of make it obvious that they're connecting into the books here.
Yeah. And Osha asked Chimera, "Why did you bring me here?" And he says,
Why'd you bring me here?
Why do you think?
Leverage?
she says leverage, which is a very famous tagline for a very famous and poorly received box office movie, Battlefield Earth there. And of course, she's trying to reason with Chimera why she's there. And do you think she kind of gets it that she's there to be the pupil, that she's more special in the Force that she thinks? Because that's kind of what I'm getting from all this.
Yeah, I honestly don't know whether she's like okay, yeah, maybe this guy has something to teach me, or if she's still in Jedi mode. But I think she's kind of, because of Soul, for example, telling her already that there's more for him to tell her and all that kind of stuff. I think she might be questioning the Jedi thing, and so I think they're both kind of feeling each other up for,
Yeah.
what can you give me, kind of thing.
Right. And Osha says he's found me before, talking about Soul, and his strength in the Force is very powerful. So she's still holding up Soul in very, very high regard.
Or is she just throwing that out there, kind of like somebody as an empty threat? It's like, I have a gun in my coat.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that you don't.
Right.
That's your strength in the Force, Osha.
Yeah, it seems like everyone knows that Osha's powerful and she can do a lot of different things with the Force, but except for Osha knowing that. And then Chimera points out that you'd better start swimming if you want to make it to the ship before sundown, and points out the tides. So this unknown planet has tides. And you see the ship that we've seen before in every other episode that's that May and Chimera have used. And we're back on the ship, and May is trying to repair it, I guess. And she sees Pip there, and Pip is kind of freaking out. And then she notices Basil, of course, and Basil does this like little funny like display in front of her of martial arts or something,
Hey.
and attacks her leg. And it's kind of interesting that the Tynans, his species, have these really huge beaver-like teeth. Why he just didn't bite her, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing kind of, I guess it's supposed to be comic relief, but
Yeah. Yeah, Moose Soup Yoda says on YouTube, use the Schwartz. So yeah, Pip automatically knows it is not Osha, sprays her with some like oil or something. And then for all the people that feel for droids out there, get really disturbed by this, because May takes up Pip and reboot, like basically switches him back to factory settings. So Pip's eyes, or what appear to be eyes, go from white to red here.
which is what happens to C-3PO when he gets reset as well.
Right, right. So now she has a fully functional Pip droid at her disposal.
Which to me, what I thought that was kind of sad, that they're essentially showing a droid getting killed.
Well, the thing is, Osha might have made a backup for him, or when Basil docked Pip, it may have backed him up. So
yeah, I mean, it's possible. I guess.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing I think is interesting. Obviously, these are not considered to be like full on droids, because like when when C-3PO gets reset, or like they're talking about throughout the movies when they do a mind wipe. It's not seemingly as simple as holding down two buttons. So this literally doesn't seem to be anything that's really a companion type droid. It's just a tool. And
Right.
so yeah, you may need to reset it on a regular basis. That's why it has reset functionality like an iPhone.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, Osha's very curious. She's starting to ask questions. Chimera, she says, "What did you mean, my strength in the Force?" And Chimera is over here doing his best Yoda impersonation in his dwelling, making food, kind of still reasoning with Osha why, more or less, she should essentially join him and forget about the Jedi and point out the fallacy of the Jedi. And this was interesting here because Osha points out that she'll basically lose her abilities if she doesn't practice the way of the Jedi, and Chimera is essentially telling her, no, that's not true, essentially.
Yeah, I
And
mean, we kind of know that that's not correct anyways because they
yeah,
cover that in some of the movies that you have to actively disconnect yourself from the force for the powers to fade away.
uh,
So
yeah, and Chimera offers Osha some food.
by the way, do you think that Osha has actually been actively mind wiped, like to
I
hide
yes,
something that she might have previously learned already, like
right.
she found out what happened on the Braddock, and they wiped her memory and dumped her.
Right. I think something along those lines actually happened. And I'm thinking it was probably Soul that did it. And you see Osha here with Chimera's lightsaber. And Chimera's still trying to convey to Osha that the Jedi got rid of you, they didn't want you. Why aren't you a Jedi? And then Osha's trying to say, I chose to leave. And Chimera's just telling her, well, they threw you away. That's the situation. That's what happened. Why aren't you a Jedi? And then Osha basically has enough of it, ignites Chimera's red lightsaber, and pushes him back against the rock. And Chimera just essentially lets her do it. And Chimera tells Osha that he lost everything.
Everything, Osha. But when you lose everything,
And he says, but when you lose everything,
that's when you're finally
free. So I think at this point, Osha's starting to kind of reason and see Chimera's logic and think back like, oh, maybe the Jedi didn't have the best intentions for me here. And we switch back to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and we see a slew of different aliens walking next to Vernestra Rwoh and Mog. We see that alien on the cover of Knights of the Old Republic video game.
Yep. It's also one of the kind of default races that they put in front of you in the game constantly, like as vendors and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So with the background here, here's another High Republic Easter egg. So yeah, Vernestra Rwoh's ship is called I believe it's called the Canteros, named after her Padawan from the High Republic books. And we get back here to, I believe that is the ship that I'm trying to get to the exact scene right there. So the dock is made, And we see Basil going through the tunnel there, which is very reminiscent of Yoda crawling through that little tunnel in Revenge of the Sith. And you can hear Saul calling for Osha there. And Saul's had a lot to think about. And I think at this point, he's totally aware that this is not Osha, that this is totally May.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the first time he detected that something is not right here is in that first hug scene, and by now he's
Yeah.
pretty much fully established. Yeah, this is not Osha.
So May thinks this is her perfect opportunity to make the decision to contact anyone out there. And of course, Soul rolls up right behind her
My name is.
and stuns her with that old school stun gun. So she goes down. Basil witnesses this and is probably thoroughly confused here. And
Well, I don't know why he would be confused though, because he knows it's not Osha. So, and he's even gone as far as pseudo attacking her. So I don't see why he would be confused. It's just okay.
well,
Glad you finally caught up.
yeah, I mean, just kind of his reaction was kind of like he didn't go to Soul. He was just like, "Oh, she just got taken out. I'm just gonna go hide." It's like, why would he just go hide and not like? Because I don't think he's revealed himself to Soul, right? I think
not
Basil's still
on
kinda hidden.
camera, but at the
Right.
same time, there may be pieces missing because it's just in general. It always feels to me like there's small scenes missing in these episodes that may have been the
Yeah.
original, and they just kind of chopped away for the 30 minutes sake.
Right. And this is very convenient here. Soul goes into hyperspace, and Vernestra Rowe shows up on Kofar. And of course, they land exactly the same spot where the Poland had landed with the group of Jedi that got murdered. They talk to the locals, just like the previous episode. They venture out to the forest. We jump back to the unknown planet.
They do talk about the whole moth swarm hatching.
Yes,
incident.
the Umber Moth. Yeah, the Umber Moth swarm, and they kind of reason. Well, Mog says, "Well, maybe that explains why all the Jedi died." And of course, they're on their way to go check that out. And then we jump back to the unknown planet. Osha's finally eating Chimere's food. We see Chimere working on his Cortosis helmet that's been confirmed by StarWars.com. And they talk about revenge, and you see the scars on the back of Chimere. And I believe there was a scene when he was at the pool. You saw those same scars on his back.
Yeah, you actually get a better view in that case because he's just shirtless walking into the water.
Right,
so you get
right.
to see the whole back.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you want to go back to that scene? Because it's when he's walking into the pool, right?
Right. Like when he first takes his shirt off.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's that scene. I think it's a scene where he actually comes out. Right. There's like a smidge of it.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, it was really, really quick right there. But yeah, there's an actual scene where you see like a big Y-shaped scar on the back of Chimere. And yeah, I think a bunch of people are kind of assuming, okay, well, this is possibly from Vernestra Rowe's whip because he does mention he was a Jedi that was trained a long, long time ago.
Yeah, I heard people say that, but that scar doesn't make any sense in that reason. I mean, because for one of the reasons why the light whip is actually not allowed by the judge. If Esther Rose the only one allowed to have one,
Mhm.
is because the terrible injuries that causes. And if you think about it, you know that would just essentially have the potential of killing anybody. It's not like a regular whip where you can hit somebody with it and it just leaves a bloody streak. There's a literally start cutting people to pieces. So I don't
Right.
think that's what it's from, or they wouldn't make any sense that that's what it's from. But it's clearly from somebody and him getting abused in some sort of way.
Yeah, and Kymir talks about his helmet like those helmets that we've seen, I believe, all the way back in the Phantom Menace, where Yoda's training the Padawans and they have their eyes covered. Also, going back to when Obi-Wan Kenobi was on the deck of the Millennium Falcon and in Episode 4, telling Luke that his eyes deceive him, and he wears a helmet with a blast shield, and that's essentially what Kymir's saying his helmet is. You really can't see out of it. It's sensory deprivation, which makes him that much more powerful, because to take on that many Jedi and to really not see what he's doing, it's just him and the Force. And then Kymir walks away and says, "Try it on," and then Osha says, "I don't trust you." But he walks away, and then Osha thinks about it, looks at the helmet, and you actually get to see the helmet at a much better light here in the light, and you can see that it's actually more kind of tan, brownish color. It's not black. And you can see all the markings from all the previous battles he had. So this is interesting that they did this. They showed Jeki's lifeless body on Kofar.
With holes in her.
Yeah.
Which I thought was actually kind of interesting for Disney to show the wounds up close and personal like that. But
Yeah. So yeah, we get one last, probably last view of Jeki. And also Yord as well. And I don't think anyone suspected that we'd see any of these characters die. And then we see the Keldor Jedi that's not Plo Koon dead. And then I think Vernestra's channeling the Force and hearing Soul's dialogue during this battle. And then Vernestra asks Mog what happened here, and he talks about an explosion. And then they see the lightsaber wounds. And this was a little cool sequence here when the lightsaber comes up, she ignites it, and we've seen part of that in the marketing. Slices the Umber Moth in half.
right, but that scene is also the reason I'm like, yeah, it doesn't seem likely that the wounds on Kymir's back are from that, because
Yeah.
like I said, when you see that lashing at the moth, it cuts straight through. It's not like it just kind of randomly stops and only burns the skin. You literally slice him in half. So I don't think that that's what that's from.
Well, I think everyone's thinking is maybe using her skill, she doesn't slice through, she wouldn't slice through him completely, just maybe graze him. And I think we've seen a little bit of the graze stuff, like in Ahsoka, like with those stormtroopers at the end. Sabine wouldn't cut through some of those, and it would just be like a marking. So I think that's what people are kind of pointing to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Hopefully they'll show us.
Yeah, hopefully there's a big backstory, origin story for Kymir. That'd be really cool. Yeah, Mog points out who would possess the power to slay such a strong group. And very, very mysterious looking face and sentence here from Vernestra Rose, something to tip the scales. So this kind of like leans into the fact that maybe Kymir was maybe Vernestra Rose Padawan a long, long time ago. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that that it necessarily has to be her Padawan, but say it may be just somebody she's aware of that, you know, because we don't know what Kymer's actual age. He says it's been a long, long time ago. Technically, this could be somebody that trained alongside her too.
Yeah.
The the jump to conclusions bit that I've heard in a lot of places that this she must be uh, a Sith because she knows what happened to Kymer. I'm like that not necessarily. I mean, yes, I could be, but I don't think there's any indication for any of that at this point.
Yeah. So yeah, we see May strapped down to a table, cuffed, and Soul reveals that he knows it's not her, and starts talking to her about the fact that they're gonna have a long talk, and they're basically telling the audience that we're gonna get to see this big flashback that we've seen in some of the promotional stuff here. And just terrific acting by Lee Jung-jae in this role of Soul, because I think we all thought that he was going to be like the Qui-Gon Jinn type character, but apparently, I mean, from all accounts and everything that's pointing to, he's not the best of Jedi. And then we get the Cortosis helmet one more time, and we get Osha staring at it, touching it, and she eventually here picks it up and decides to put it on. We see her vantage point with the mask on, and there's just very, very tiny eye slits. And she closes her eyes. And that's the end of the episode. She takes a big breath. So, and also previously before that, we see a big Cortosis vein inside that cave. So,
Right. So
going back to what we thought of what unknown planet this could be, a lot of people kind of assumed that, okay, well, maybe Octu, but there's a planet in Legends that it's called Baldemnik, and that planet is the place where I believe Plagueis killed his master, Darth Tenebrous.
Right. Because
and is known for having Cortosis as a mineral naturally appearing on that planet. So that's what everyone's kind of thinking. Yeah, and Musup Yoda on YouTube says, so badass to learn Kymir was essentially blind during his fight for his in episode 5, maybe foreshadowing that he will be blind to eventual death, possibly. Yeah, I just think that makes his character that much more powerful, that much more interesting. And it's kind of like one of those things where you think about, okay, we haven't had a character yet who's blinded, because we all know that they can still fight, going all the way back to the original movie. They can still defend themselves, fight.
Right. Do you think that that's actually kind of an indication why the Jedi changed their training methods? Because, like, if you remember in episode 1, we see Yoda with a whole room full of kids with the helmets on, but, in the training scenes here, they're always without helmets and with wooden sticks instead of actual lightsabers. So, do you think the Jedi kind of stepped up their training game based on some of what happened here?
Possibly, but I think the whole gist of this story and the way it actually exists, that the Jedi can't find out that Kymir is actually a thing, right? Because that would kind of go against them thinking the Sith were extinct.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you have this whole aspect to the show where they've already said that they're trying to cover things
Right.
up. So it could end up being that, for example, Vanessa Rowe returns back to the Jedi Temple, covers everything up, but then goes, "Hey, you know what? Maybe we need to work on our fighting skills, so that people don't wipe us out. What 1 on 8 that shouldn't happen." So.
So yeah, overall, I thought it was a very good episode. Unfortunately, only 32 minutes of actual live action, but I mean, for Star Wars fans like us, we went a long time without live action anything, and I'm very appreciative that we're actually getting shows like this. And Rob Ortiz here on YouTube says, "I'm having a hard time enjoying the show." Um, I think whenever I go into something having certain expectations, I enjoy it less. With Acolyte, I went into it with zero expectations and just told myself I'm just going to go along for the ride, because anything that I kind of preconceive and think is going to happen is probably not going to happen. I'm probably going to be disappointed. And just to go into it fresh, brand new, having our thoughts and opinions and getting to see some of the stuff that I've been wanting to see for a very long time. Lots of Jedi interacting on screen, fighting together. We've gotten that. It's a mystery. We don't know what's going to happen, what the motivations are for these characters. We're all assuming certain things, which I think is one of the big pluses for this show. We just don't know what's happening, what the characters' motivations are, what their like silence and looks on camera are all about. I mean, it's all going to be revealed. Apparently, Leslie Headland, the showrunner, said that she is going to reveal everything that's going on in this season. By the end, there's not going to be a cliffhanger at the end of the show. There is a season 2 being talked about, but we're going to get finality in this season and know kind of what's going on. So, and I think for me personally, them going the angle of like the Jedi are like cops, and this certain group of Jedi might be the Jedi that were on Brendok were bad cops in a way, or maybe Sol was the bad cop, and you kind of see that. And I always think that Star Wars is like a mirror to our reality, and I mean, we all know there are bad cops out there. So seeing this kind of shines a light of, okay, well, the Jedi, some of them aren't great. I mean, some of them are bad. Just because they're Jedi doesn't mean that they make the best decisions, the right decisions. So I think that's the way I'm kind of seeing the show, and I like that all those interesting aspects. So that's how it works for me. That's how I'm enjoying it, because it's giving a little bit more nuance and color to what the Jedi that we perceive are.
Right. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it too. Is like, look, this is giving background story that
Yeah.
is actually entertaining to me. I mean, I at the same time I do understand why some people might not like this, because for one, some of the references are a little bit inside baseball kind of references that,
Right.
so if you're just if you're not a freak like us, you might not know anything about cortosis and all this stuff, and because the episodes are so short and these reveals now become more and more narrative, because you're packing this into a small space where you don't have time to explain what that is. I think that might be part of the reason why you start losing some people, is because they're missing narrative elements that you're only inserting for people that have inside baseball knowledge, and that's
Mhm.
you know a that might be part of the problem of the show. Which is also why you see reviewers that may have had the time to look into that and figure out how cool these connections are. That might be why you're seeing an 84% on the critics side. And
Right.
I haven't looked in a while what the actual score is now, but it was all the way down to 16 at one point that I saw. So
Yeah, I really like the episode. It built upon the world of the Acolyte. I'm enjoying the show. I'm really enjoying it because I just don't know what's going to happen. I haven't seen any spoilers. Um, Kymir came out and kind of grew into one of my favorite dark side users now. I mean, I kind of like his aesthetics. I like his helmet. I like his lightsaber. I like his backstory. I like the way he fights. I mean, just that fight sequence alone, just headbutting lightsabers and using his gauntlet. That's something we've never seen before. Um, the fact that he has that dagger saber hidden in his hilt, and that surprised Jackie and caused her demise. I like all that stuff. The negative, of course, I mean, we talk about all the time. These episodes are so short. I wish there were longer episodes. And some of the positives, I think, for me, are people talking about the acting. And I don't have a problem with any of the acting, really.
Well,
pointed out.
some of the characters are. And I've actually said this in a few episodes. Some of the acting and some of the I don't think that Daphne Keene was as well acted as she's technically capable of doing.
Yeah.
But it's the problem there is also that we don't get enough insight into the characters. We don't know if that character is just supposed to be really, really bland. You know how some people
Right,
are just
which
kind
goes
of
back to the fact that we have such short episodes. If we had longer
right,
episodes, we could kind of delve into who they really are and
right.
get really great character development. But
Yeah, with
it is
them
what it
cutting
is.
everything so short, yes, it could be bad acting, or that could be completely on point, but wouldn't know that because they never explained that to anybody. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
kind of my complaint about this show so far, is that they're just not providing enough info.
Yeah, Musup Yoda on YouTube says, I think the use of kurtosis is being used as an analogy to the blindness the Jedi have towards anything dark side. Yeah, I could see that.
Even though cortosis is not really a dark side thing, it's just a metal. It's actually an industrial metal.
Right, I think he's just talking about the fact that the helmet blinds him and
yeah, maybe
being blind. Yeah. But yeah, we have 2 more episodes left for the Acolyte. We're going to do a pre-show and post-show Tuesday. That will be the penultimate episode. And I think we're all assuming we're finally going to get that flashback on Brendock and see what actually happened. Or maybe we get the origin story of Chimere. Either or, I'll take either or. At this point, I mean, there's only 2 episodes left. Hopefully they're more than 30 minutes. And we get a lot more stuff. I think the only two scenes that we've seen in marketing that haven't appeared are Kalnaka with his green lightsaber looking like he's attacking Torben, and the ship, one of the ships in an asteroid field, like tumbling through it.
Well, I think it's more like the ring around one of the planets that is going through. I don't think it's
Yeah.
per se.
So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. And I'm pretty sure we're gonna get more Carrie-Anne Moss stuff. I don't think they're gonna end it without getting more of her on the show. But
we do need more Trinity.
Yeah, I know that's been kind of a big disappointment for a lot of Carrie-Anne Moss Trinity Matrix fans. But that first fight was really cool, and I think they kind of made a promise that they didn't keep the audience, that we're going to get more of her and she was going to be like a main character. So I guess that's a little bit of a drawback to the show. But
I mean, she is a main character, but I mean, she's this whole thing going, so I think that makes her pretty main. But yeah, again though, with these itty bitty little episodes, you never get any establishing shots. Like what I would have liked to have seen in episode 1, for example, is May getting on the planet and then maybe show a scene with her sitting there at the table and hanging out with her friends or whoever these people are and having a good time and kind of establishing a character, instead of just going, yeah, this is the character and now come fight me.
Yeah.
What? It's just, yeah. That's the stuff that confuses me about this show, is that you're just expecting people to buy the characters without explaining who they are. So
yeah. All right. Well, I think that is the episode. I want to thank everyone that's watching us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Thank you so much. And one last comment here. I will one on YouTube says, I don't think Soul is going to survive episode 8. That's possible. I can see that. But
yeah,
it feels like Lee Jung Jae is like going to be towards the very end, and we're going to show him suffer even more. And maybe, I don't know, maybe do the whole Harry Carey thing,
Well, there's that, and there's also the possibility that he ends up becoming going dark side from this point, because he's already at the tipping point.
There's so many avenues. That's the good thing about the show. It's like they could go they could take so many different turns. I mean, he could be the master. I mean, for all we know, he's Darth Plagueis.
Right.
I mean, what?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, he could already be a dark side user, and
Right.
nobody seems to know it. It could also be that he's just been teetering on the edge after what
Right.
happened, and so that him, for example, then since they make mention of attacking unarmed Chimere, maybe that's how Chimere goes, and Soul falls to the dark side.
Yeah, it could be the
So
whole Palpatine thing where
right.
Palpatine was posing as a senator. Soul could be posing as a Jedi Master, and then you end up actually being. And then you have to
Which
rewatch
you
the
would
whole
think
thing.
think that would make him like exceptionally powerful. Like if he can
Right.
hide in the Jedi Temple the entire time as as a Sith. That
Yeah.
okay, kudos to you, man. But yeah, well, how are you not wiping the entire temple out? Yeah, but
Yeah, but yeah, thanks to everyone watching us, joining in on the chat with your opinions, your thoughts. If you're looking to support the podcast, you can always go to Patreon, support us at Star Wars Stuff Podcast 2187. You can find us on Instagram at Star Wars Stuff Pod, on X/Twitter at Stuff Pod. We're also on Threads at Star Wars Stuff Podcast. We're on TikTok. Just search up Star Wars Stuff Podcast. You can email the show at StarWarsStuffPodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, of course. We have a page in the group. You can also, I was going to point out something, but I didn't. Comment, like, subscribe, of course, on the video on YouTube if you're watching us there. Hit the like button wherever you're watching us. Go out to Apple, Spotify, give us 5 stars, write a review. It definitely does help the podcast. And for Carl, my name is David. May the force be with you.